My name is Eladon, and my pronouns are they, them. And I'm a neurodivergent, non-binary person. My age is unknowable, and my pronouns are a deeply kept secret. I am a mystery. I am an enigma. I identify as non-binary. So the biggest challenge for me with transitioning has been that I have dissociative identity disorder. And according to the medical field, that means I have altered states of consciousness. What it really means to me is that we have alternate individuals, different people, all sharing the same mind and the same body. So we have been aware of this for a long time, over a decade, and we're fine. But clinically, the medical field sees it differently. They're not inside of my head, so they can only assume what it's like. And one of the big challenges for people with dissociative identity disorder is that a lot of people, especially in the medical field, tend to doubt your autonomy and your ability to make decisions. And one of the big issues is that when it comes to getting gender affirming surgery, we need informed consent. That's how we go about getting our surgery approved. So for me, I went my whole life finding only therapists who did not believe in dissociative identity disorder until it was time for me to get gender affirming surgery. And suddenly my gender therapist is also a trauma therapist who's very well versed on dissociative identity disorder. So she's the first person to ever take me seriously. And she also needs informed consent to get my surgery done. And so because she has experience in both fields, she's seen people who have gotten surgery and then an alter in their system has reacted very badly. So I've definitely had to jump through hoops to get to a place where I'm able to be getting my paperwork filled out and getting my surgery done. It wasn't impossible. I thought it would be. The moment she brought up that I had a system and that, my paperwork said, you have dissociative identity disorder, I thought that's the end of the line for me. I'm not going to be taken seriously, and it's going to be impossible for me to get anything going forward. So it wasn't impossible. It was a big challenge, and I feel like it was more difficult for me than for like an average neurotypical person to prove that they knew what they were doing and that this was what was best for them. But in the end, we're getting there. We're still getting what we need. Because a lot of people see the system as just different parts of one person's subconscious. We, as a system, don't see it that way. We see each individual as an individual person. So if I'm speaking about my individual experiences, I will use they, them, because I am non-binary. And then there's other alters who prefer to use he, him, and we do have an alter who uses it and its pronouns. So we have individual pronouns, but if I'm referring to the system as a whole, it would be we, us, because there is more than one of us. We are not all the same individual. So yeah, we have our individual pronouns, but then as a whole, we are multiple individuals. So when it comes to being a system and having gender dysphoria and wanting to transition, it is more complex, I suppose, although I wouldn't say it's a simple journey for anybody. But there's definitely things we'd only thought about a little that working with the gender therapist, and honestly, I'm so grateful she is a trauma specialist because she has been invaluable to us. But working with her, she kind of got us to explore a lot of things we hadn't looked into in detail. So I journal. One of the things about DID is that personally, I experience a lot of dissociative amnesia. So I lose minutes, I lose hours, sometimes I lose days, and I have a hard time remembering conversations and even feelings. So I journal everything. So one of the things we did together as a system is we created different journal pages that gave people a spot to journal their own feelings about different things, whether it was this surgery or that surgery, these hormones, or this voice clinic, or how they felt about getting one option versus a different option. Because for the most part, I would just kind of like look back in my mind and go, hey, you guys all cool with this? I didn't hear a no. Whereas now, like, we actually had a physical way for, even if I wasn't present or if someone else wasn't present, when they were present, they could write all of their thoughts, all of their feelings down. And we decided to consider the power of veto, which was kind of only going to be an emergency, like, don't misuse it. Where we decided that if something was absolutely horrifying for someone, they could say, like, we can't have this done. And nobody has, some people have had very strong opinions for and against different options, but no one has used the power of veto yet. But yeah, so I think a big thing for us is that we journal. Yeah, a lot of people who think it's spontaneous would change their minds if they saw how many journal entries we had that are just pages and pages of pros versus cons, emotional feelings, physical feelings. We have a journal entry that's like our gender brainstorm chart. We have another journal entry that is like a pie chart for pros and cons. So there's quite a few spreads in our journals that are solely dedicated to everyone's thoughts and opinions on different aspects of the transition. So it's been a lot easier doing it that way to keep track of how everybody feels going into it. And we were actually a bit surprised by what we found. Pretty much the entire system is on board for some things. There might be one person in the system who doesn't want to do something. And it's not that they dislike the idea, they just don't need it. And that's exactly what they wrote. They said they're not opposed, the idea wouldn't hurt them. They just don't need it to be happy. Whereas other options that we were considering, there are some people who are very strongly against it. They don't think they'd be comfortable. So we thought originally that we were going to get some surgeries and some hormones. Like, there's a few different things we had planned. And at the moment, we've decided there's only one thing everyone's on board with. So that's where we're starting. And we're going to go from there. And again, every step of the way, we just have to see how everybody feels about it. My relationships have gotten a little bit better. And by that, I think it just means that I'm more willing to have them. Because I've always been afraid of people and what they would think of me. I still struggle socially, but we're in the middle of a pandemic and I'm not neurotypical, so of course I struggle socially. I always saw myself in a miserable job, trying to save up for a house I knew I could never afford. I always tried to fit myself into my family's views of what was typical, the world's views of what was typical. And now I know I'm not typical. Nothing about me is typical. So why bother trying? So I've decided I'm going to be myself and do what makes me happy, which includes transitioning, but it's not limited to transitioning. And ever since kind of shedding that need to conform to what the world wants me to be, I've been able to set all kinds of exciting goals. I have plans to get my driver's license as soon as COVID is over. My test has been canceled a few times because of lockdown. But as soon as I'm able to, I'm getting my license. During COVID, I saved up the money to buy myself a van. And as soon as it lets up, I'm getting my license, I'm buying a van, and I'm hitting the road. I used lockdown to start learning French and Spanish because I thought those were going to be the first languages I need. And by the time I traveled this continent, I can start learning Japanese. So I feel like every door has been unlocked. And there's nothing about transitioning that's inherently made those things physically or monetarily easier for me, but it's totally obliterated a mental block. I had this mental block that said, I can't do this. I can't do this, whether it's because it's too hard for me, I'm not adequate, I'm not good enough, I'll never have the skills, I'll never have the money, people will not approve. All of that is gone. I'm allowed to live for myself and do what makes me happy. And ever since realizing that, I don't plan to do anything else. I have a whole list of friends I plan on meeting. I have a whole list of places I plan on going. My plans for the future pretty much are to just travel the world. That's where I see myself. I couldn't say, because I'm not going to be tied down anywhere.
Hey everyone, thank you for following the TransCanada Project on YouTube. We hope you're enjoying the stories. YouTube has a suggested video up here you can follow, and we would suggest maybe you check out this one. And don't forget, please like the video if you liked it and subscribe. It really helps us out, it helps us share these stories with more people. So thank you, bye!